Hello and welcome to The Top Story, a podcast with the headlines of the day from our correspondents around the world. I'm Han, coming up in this edition. The Israeli Defense Forces say Iran has launched drones towards Israeli territory. It comes after Israel attacked Iranian military and nuclear targets earlier in the day. An aviation safety expert has told media that officials will have to look into the plane's configuration to determine why the London-bound Air India passenger aircraft crashed shortly after takeoff on Thursday. And the fourth China-Africa Economic and Trade Expo is underway in Changsha. We begin in the Middle East. The Israeli military says its fighter jets are still conducting strikes against Iranian military and nuclear facilities. The Israeli Defense Forces say Iran has launched drones towards Israeli territory after Israel launched a wave of attacks across Iran. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says the operation will continue for as long as necessary. Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has warned of severe punishment against Israel. Iran has confirmed the killing of top military officials and scientists. They include Chief Commander Hossein Salami of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard and Mohammad Bagheri, Chief of Staff of the Iranian Armed Forces. Iran has closed airspace and suspended flights at the main international airport in Tehran. Sepia Seremi has more from Tehran.
Israel has carried out a wave of coordinated strikes across Iran, hitting military command centers and nuclear infrastructure, including the Natanz nuclear facility, which is one of the most sensitive sites in Iran's nuclear program. The attacks have claimed the lives of top military officials. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps has confirmed the death of Hossein Salami, one of the most powerful and high-ranking commanders in Iran. Meanwhile, Mohammad Bagheri, the chief of staff of the Iranian Armed Forces, has also been killed, according to state television. While cities like Tabriz and Kermanshah were among those targeted, it was in Tehran where residential neighborhoods came under direct attack. The capital is in a state of emergency. Military checkpoints, armored vehicles, and armed personnel are spread across the city. The heavy security presence made it extremely difficult for me to move around the city and report. At one point, I was prevented from continuing my coverage due to access restrictions imposed by security forces. In response to the loss of senior military figures, the supreme leader of the Islamic Republic of Iran, Ali Khamenei, has begun appointing commanders of key positions, signaling the leadership's determination to maintain control and prepare for what may lie ahead. Tensions are at now a boiling point. The region is bracing for possible retaliation, and uncertainty hangs heavily over Iran and its neighbors.
There was Sepia Seremi reporting. Turning to South Asia, an aviation safety expert has told media that officials will have to look into the plane's configuration to determine why the London-bound Air India passenger aircraft crashed shortly after takeoff on Thursday. CEO John Cox with Safety Operating Systems said something didn't seem right when the plane was leaving the tarmac.
From looking at the aircraft from behind, it doesn't look like that the trailing edge flaps are in the position I would have expected them to be. But I'm very cautious that the image quality is not good enough to make that a conclusion. It's just an area where I know that they're going to look.
There were over 240 people on board when the crash happened in Ahmedabad. The disaster has killed over 260 people, including many on the ground. U.S. federal aviation investigators will travel to India to assist with the investigation into the deadly plane crash in the South Asian country. President Donald Trump has described the disaster as one of the worst incidents in aviation history, pledging to offer assistance. Kate Fisher has more from Washington, D.C.
India's Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau will lead the probe into Thursday's crash, and the U.S. National Transportation Safety Board is sending a team to India to assist. Staff from the Federal Aviation Administration are also set to help the NTSB. US President Donald Trump said on Thursday that the United States would offer whatever assistance India needed, and he mentioned that he gave officials some pointers on possible causes. Mr. Trump went on to say it's a big country, a strong country, and they'll handle it, I'm sure. But I let them know that anything we can do and we'll be over there immediately. Meanwhile, Boeing, the manufacturer of the 787 Dreamliner, released a statement following the crash. Its chief executive said, "Our deepest condolences go out to the loved ones of the passengers and crew on board Air India Flight 171, and added that the Boeing team stands ready to support the investigation. The crash is of particular concern for Boeing, not just because of the tragic circumstances, but also because it's the first crash of a 787-8 Dreamliner.
That was Kate Fisher reporting. Over to the US, protests against immigration raids are taking place across many cities, including Chicago, where an unidentified person drove a car through a crowd of protesters in a downtown area. Dan Williams has more.
Protesters are once again taking to the streets in downtown Chicago. It follows other demonstrations that have taken place in the city this week against US President Donald Trump's ongoing immigration raids. The protest, organised by Illinois Coalition for Immigrant and Refugee Rights, comes as Chicago's Mayor Brandon Johnson warned that US Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, are planning to increase their operations in the city.
Coming together and rallying and marching is one of the ways that our communities can say, our communities and our allies can say that we reject this campaign of hate by the Trump administration, and we want ICE out of Illinois.
Chicago is a sanctuary city, and Illinois as a state has always been on the right side of history, supporting the immigrant community, not just in words, but in laws and any other type of policies that help support and keep the immigrant community safe. So, I think this is not new for Chicago or for Illinois. We're just here doing what we do best, which is coming out and support each other.
The protests here take place against a backdrop of continuing anti-ICE protests in Los Angeles that saw Trump order in the National Guard. On Tuesday in Chicago, a protest march was marred after a car ploughed through a group of protesters, injuring one woman. Police are investigating the incident as a hit and run and are still searching for the driver. The largest demonstration against the immigration raids and the wider Trump administration agenda is expected to take place this Saturday. Thousands are expected to march in the so-called No Kings protest to counter Trump's military parade set to take place in Washington on the same day.
That was Dan Williams reporting. Another night of curfew in Los Angeles has ended with more arrests. Immigration raids continue as hundreds of U.S. Marines are preparing to move into the city. Residents in affected communities have expressed hurt and anger. Eddie Stianshan visited the community in Los Angeles to find out more.
For nearly a week, hundreds have marched in the streets of Los Angeles to protest the deployment of the National Guard and the immigration and customs enforcement raids that continue to separate families.
My father was supposed to see my sister graduate today. We saw how much she struggled, how much she accomplished towards the end. And he's not going to be able to be here to see her graduate.
There's a lot of hurt and anger in this community, and local leaders have pleaded with the government to stop, but to no avail.
Well, yeah, that I want to speak to the president and that I want him to understand the significance of what is happening here.
Humanitarian and religious organizations want the federal government to back off.
They're fearful that their dignity is being robbed from them. They're fearful for family members who they don't know are going to be taken. They don't want to have family separation. And that's a big concern, is family separation, where we have people being taken apart.
In an effort to prevent vandalism and looting, an evening curfew has been in effect over a small part of the downtown area. Dozens, in defiance, have been arrested in recent days as the district attorney delivers a stern warning to rioters.
When that speech crosses over from protected speech into illegal conduct, the people who engage in that illegal conduct will be prosecuted. They will first be arrested, they will be prosecuted, and they will be punished to the full extent of the law.
By Friday, U.S. Marines are expected to join National Guard troops on the streets of Los Angeles, with the authority to detain anyone who interferes with immigration raids or protesters who confront federal agents.
That was Eddie Stianshan reporting. Finally, in China, the 4th China-Africa Economic and Trade Expo is underway in Changsha. The fair in the central Chinese city attracted over 30,000 participants. 30 trade and economic events will take place during the expo, which runs until Sunday, covering a range of collaborative fields. Olivia Hu has more.
The 4th China-Africa Economic and Trade Expo is one of the most important economic and trade exchanges between China and African countries this year. So far, the Expo has secured 279 signed projects from Chinese and African partners, a 43.8% increase from the previous session. During the event, 175 cooperation agreements worth $11.39 billion will be signed. The Expo will feature 30 high-level trade and economic events focusing on cutting-edge fields such as green energy, digital economy and agricultural modernization, providing a platform for in-depth dialogue. Additionally, 6 themed events, including the China-Africa Private Economic Forum and China-Africa Film Week, will take place, strengthening cultural ties and people-to-people connections. Furthermore, 5 Chinese provinces, including Hubei and Chongqing, and 9 African nations, such as Rwanda and Angola, will host dedicated promotion sessions to facilitate precise resource matching, driving China-Africa cooperation toward higher value industrial and supply chains.
That was Olivia Hu in Changsha. Recapping today's headlines, the Israeli Defense Forces say Iran has launched drones towards Israeli territory. It comes after Israel attacked Iranian military and nuclear targets earlier in the day. An aviation safety expert has told media that officials will have to look into the plane's configuration to determine why the London-bound Air India passenger aircraft crashed shortly after takeoff on Thursday. And the 4th China-Africa Economic and Trade Expo is underway in Changsha. That's it for this edition of The Top Story, a podcast that brings you world headlines every weekday. For more news in politics, business, sports and culture, you can subscribe to the Beijing Hour, a 1-hour podcast news magazine program. We welcome and appreciate all ratings and reviews. I'm Wang Zihang. Thank you for listening.